Hey, hello and welcome. My name's Ryder, and in this video today we're going to be talking about the 3 stages of the unfoldment of toxic shame and the devastating impact that it can have on a person's world, not only from the past but also many other areas today if it's projecting onto all areas of life, which toxic shame definitely can do. Now, shame, of all of the areas that I've ever studied in mental health, is by far the most complex area of all of them. So it goes beyond depression, it goes beyond anxiety, it goes beyond self-doubt, it goes beyond emotional manipulative behaviour, any form of abuse that we may face today, because it's our belief about ourselves. So the areas that we're going to cover in this video is what shame actually is, and then the 3 stages of how it manifests itself in the human mind, and then more importantly, steps you can take to alleviate yourself of the challenge of shame if it is currently projecting itself onto your world at this moment in time. Now, the one thing that I want to share before we even get into this is that we can see online today there are amazing coaches, trainers and therapists out there who are teaching what shame actually is, which is fantastic. However, unfortunately, we can see a lot of people talking about how to overcome shame, when really they're not talking about shame. They're talking about the anxiety projection of shame, which is very different than the concept of shame. So shame itself is a belief in ourselves that we are inherently flawed in some way. Whereas if we have an anxiety projection of that belief about ourselves, that is anxiety and is separate. So I want you to see all the way through this video that shame is the cause and is a belief within ourselves, and anxiety is a projection of that shame. So you've got cause, which is the shame, and then anxiety, which is the projection, cause and effect. If you only ever try to work with the effect, i.e. the anxiety of shame, you will be there forever because you're not dealing with the cause. Now, as mentioned, shame by far is one of the most complex areas I have ever encountered with anything I've ever studied with understanding mental health. So I want to take you back in time now to an experience where I finally understood what shame actually was, because I understood about guilt, I understood about trauma and abuse, but I didn't get shame. And it was when I was a personal trainer working in one of the health clubs. And you know those times when you meet people and they just get stuff. There was a guy who used to come in the gym and he just got stuff, and he helped me understand what shame actually was. And the one thing that you need to understand about this man, he was a gay man. Now that's very relevant. So when he was talking to me one day and he's trying to help me understand about what shame was, he said, "What is my opinion of a gay person?" And I said, "Well, it's just nature. It just is." And he said, "That's it. It just is. Being gay is a natural unfoldment." And he said, "Well, what about hair colour?" So, "Well, that just is." He said, "What about a person's height?" I said, "Well, that just is." So what he was getting me to understand is there's a difference between what we do and what we are. So say, for example, if we pick up a mobile phone, that is an action that we've taken. That is separate from who we are. But a person's height, a person's eye colour, a person's sexuality, a person's gender is who they are. It is their expression of nature. They can't change that. And then it started to dawn on me. Shame is a fundamental belief that what we are inherently, the things that we can't change about ourselves, is being implied by other people's emotional abuse when we were too young to understand what was going on. That we cannot change about ourselves is fundamentally flawed. So a person could be shamed for their hair colour. A person could be shamed for the colour of their skin. A person could be shamed for their height. A person could be shamed for their gender. These are not choices. These are inherently who they are. And that is the difference between guilt and shame. So guilt is a belief I've done something wrong, and shame is a belief I am something wrong. Now, why is it that we as human beings would ever believe that we are something wrong. So now let's take a look at the 3 stages of how toxic shame can unfold in a person's world. The content or information in these videos is for educational and informational purposes only. Now, the one thing that I do focus on a lot, especially on this channel, is about emotionally manipulative behaviour. And shame in another person's mindset is a belief that I am something wrong. And that is because other people, when we were younger and too young to understand what was going on, were abusing us in some way, and we chose to believe something about ourselves where we are something wrong because of the abuse that we couldn't cope with, and it was a survival instinct, of which you're going to see with the 3 stages. So stage number 1 of toxic shame, if you imagine we are a child and we are just expressing ourselves as our true self. Now, the only reason we would ever create shame inside who we are is because we are in a toxic or dangerous environment in some way. So stage number 1 of toxic shame creation is that my environment is not safe. Now, the way I give this as an analogy in the Life Beyond the Ego's Mask audiobook is that imagine a pupil in a school and there's, say, 30 people in that class, and the teacher, tyrannical teacher maybe, is attacking all of the pupils. So that's stage 1. My environment is not safe. Everybody's in danger. And then it extends itself to stage 2, which is it's not safe to be me. So now we take it back to the pupil. There are 30 pupils in that class. The tyrannical teacher is attacking everybody, but now they're attacking one person more than everybody else. So they're selecting them out, making that individual the target, and the other 29 are getting less abuse. So now that's where the person will feel, I'm really in danger now and it's all on me. Now that creates a trauma response in a person, because if we don't know what to do, if we're a child, we're in danger. And if we don't know how to survive that difficult time, we will take any option we can to survive, even if it means turning against ourselves. Now, the 3rd stage, and the most devastating stage of all of shame, is that they are right, I am wrong. Now, keep in mind all the way through, the difference between guilt and shame is that guilt is a belief I have done something wrong, and shame is a belief I am something wrong. So now we take that 3rd stage of shame. They are right, I am wrong. So imagine the tyrannical teacher is attacking one pupil over everybody else, and they're really coming down hard on that person. Now, very often what you will find when we are children is we have to survive that very difficult situation, even if it means appeasing the other person. So in stage 2, the tyrannical teacher was attacking the child. They couldn't survive that difficult time. The teacher had all of the power. It was set up at an angle. If one person's more powerful than the other, the child was never going to be able to survive that. So what the child's survival instinct could do is say inherently in themselves, the teacher's attacking me because I am fundamentally flawed. And then they start to appease that teacher to say, actually, you're right, and give them more attention and more attention. Because then that tyrannical teacher was obviously traumatized and got very low self-worth to attack a child, would feel maybe a sense of self-validation or empowerment because, again, of that low self-worth. Now, again, even though I've explained that, it might still seem quite confusing that, well, why will we turn against ourselves? Why will we inherently blame ourselves and say that I'm wrong and the teacher's right? And it's because inside ourselves, when we think about that shame, if you're carrying it in some way, shape and form, it's incredibly painful, because in essence, you could be reliving a trauma response of when you've done that to yourself. It doesn't mean that you're fundamentally flawed. It doesn't mean that you're fundamentally wrong. It just means that you may have created a belief that you are wrong in some way, inherently as you are, because you're in a very difficult situation and you had no other option. And this is why, when I mentioned before, when a lot of people are teaching techniques and strategies of dealing with the anxiety of projection, what they're not doing is getting right down to the very core. And that belief is that I am something wrong. And very often it's because that it's such a complex area. So I want you to ask yourself, through everything that we've covered through this video, does it make sense? Or does everything that we've gone through here seem really confusing or complex, that you don't really understand it? Well, the one thing is if you do feel that way, you're definitely not alone. Millions of people feel that way each and every day. So what I would suggest, if you want to look deeper into this area, is get your journal out, write everything down, those 3 stages. The environment's not safe. It's not safe to be me. They are right. I am wrong. That belief that we've created that we are fundamentally wrong to appease a very difficult situation or to appease other people who are maybe abusing us in some way. Now, yes, although that causes devastating backlash, we would have done it as a survival instinct because there was no other option at the time. We as children are very vulnerable and we can't beat adults. We can't win. We've got no choice. So if we've had abuse in our past, whether it's a parent, a teacher, an elder sibling, whoever it is, it could be that we've created that belief in ourselves to justify why we might have been being abused in the past. So from this, I would recommend get your journal, write everything down, reflect on it, ask yourself, do you do this to yourself? Do you find that no matter what you do, no matter how powerful you become, no matter what you achieve, no matter how much money you get, you can't get away from that nagging self-doubt that somehow you're not good enough? And that is because, I'm going to make another video about this, when we have shame, what we can try to do is validate ourselves through external validation. So it could be, I'm going to be okay if I have enough money. I'm going to be okay if I'm really popular. I'm going to be okay if. But what we're trying to do there is external validation. Whereas really, shame is all about re-regulating that internal validation. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions going through your mind around shame on this. And again, it's so difficult to explain it in such a short video. So write everything down, reflect on it, run it through your own filters. And if you've got any questions or things you might not be sure about, feel free to put them in the comments below. Because any thoughts you might have, other people might be reading that comment and it just helps them understand the concept so much easier. You never know, your comment could change somebody's life forever.